Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Justin Godsey. This is the Real Sports Talk and Nation Sports Bar presents the 2013 third annual 30 Clubs, 30 Previews MLB special. And Justin, the team that made the biggest noise was this offseason was the only non-American team left in the MLB since the days of the Montreal Expos are long gone, and that is the Toronto Blue Jays, who go out, make a few huge trades, one really big signing, and you add that into a team that already featured a ton of power, a ton of potential, and the Blue Jays have quickly become one of the favorites, not only in the AL East, but in the entire MLB to compete for a world title. So let's go down the list and look at some of the bigger trades that they made. Again, we'll start with they traded away their manager. John Farrell was technically traded to the Boston Red Sox. He will be their new manager. They bring back John Gibbons, who had been the team's manager in the mid-2000s, I believe till 2007 or 2008. They bring him back as their manager, and then that's when the trades really got going. They acquire, in one of the biggest trades in MLB history, they acquire Jose Reyes, Mark Burley, Josh Johnson, and Emilio Bonifacio. They acquire all of them from the Miami Marlins. They then go ahead that same week and sign Melky Cabrera, who had been suspended for a performance-enhancing drug failed test. But the bottom line is that prior to Melky Cabrera getting suspended, he was hitting on a very, very good clip the past 2 years with both the Royals and the Giants, so they acquire him. And then they also go out and they acquire the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner, Preview-Reyes+Dickey. So it is a scary Toronto Blue Jays team. To look at this team and see Ricky Romero, who, yes, had a down year, to look at this team and see him at number 5, even coming off a down year, it's very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at this team is stacked. It's an all-star caliber team. I mean, we'll get in more depth at it, but when it comes to, non-roster invitees, the spring invites and everything, you want to look at the depth that they have right now with, with backups and everything. Now, when you go over to the second base side of things, there was a lot of rumors that, there could be a new look at second base. It was Kelly Johnson. He's now with the Tampa Bay Rays, so that was really wide open. Now, the option that they had in free agency was to go out there, look at the free agent market, and, it wasn't really, the most stacked second base free agent market out there, but you know what, they got a nice deal with signing a deal with Mycier Esteras, who is going to be the team's starting second baseman to start for the whole entire season, because this guy, he's been a bench piece with the Los Angeles Angels, he's been the third baseman, and then it was turned over to Alberto Callaspo, but now he's coming over to the Blue Jays where he's going to have everyday starting abilities. Now, when you go over to the third baseman side of things, it's still up in the air on the opening day status of Brett Lawrie. We'll get into more depth about him later on, but you know what, there could be, a different start at third base to start the season with Mark DeRosa. Yes, Mark DeRosa, a guy who has bounced around from team to team over the past couple of seasons, and you know what, he could possibly be the team's opening day third baseman. Now, other things you guys want to look at for as a non-roster invitee, there's a guy that could make him come up to the organization in August, and this is a guy who has not really made an impact anywhere he has been, and that's Andy LaRoche, and this guy's really packed a mean bat in the early stages of spring training, so you really want to look out for him somewhere down the line. So, you know what, this team overall this offseason has done a phenomenal job. New acquirements, this team is set for the World Series.
They're set certainly to compete and be in contention. And look, the Miami Marlins did something similar to this last year, but the bottom line is that they didn't try to build the entire core of their team doing that. The Blue Jays, let's look at who the Blue Jays have. They have two of the best power hitters in the game already in Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion. Colby Rasmus, I'm still waiting for him to explode in center field. They add in Melky Cabrera. Brett Lawrie I expected a little bit more out of him last year, and now he has an oblique problem, so we're not sure exactly what his opening day status is, but Brett Lawrie is someone who I still have high expectations for. Last year, Ricky Romero really struggled, but I do think he has a better year this year, and Brendan Morrow is someone that has a ton of potential as well. So you look up and down this team, and it's just scary, some of the potential they do have. Now, Justin, we are going to begin at the DH spot, and that is with Adam Lind, a guy who last year hit .255 with 11 home runs in 93 games. Really had a rough first half of the season. Prior to that, he was a guy that you were expecting 25, 26 home runs for, and last year just really struggled in the first half of the year. At one point, I do believe he was at the AAA level, so he needs to really turn things around. He did that once he got cleared waivers, got sent to AAA, and he played extremely well there and then came back up and turned his season around in the second half last year. But Adam Lind is someone that the Blue Jays have shown the ability now to go out and make some big moves, so if he does not have a better start to this season, they may very well replace him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's also had, tremendous amount of trade buzz around him. I think late in 2011, even into 2011, and also in 2012. But Adam Lind, this guy can really surprise you. This guy does have a good bat, but he really needs to get back to where he was, in 2000, and I think 2010 or 9 or 2010. They really need to see that form of Adam Lind because he was the former starting first baseman. But with Edwin Encarnacion making the move over to first and Brett Lard over at third, he had to be sent to the team's designated hitter role. So, that's a good move for him. And, he's not the greatest fielder at the first base position, but you know what? He's coming over to the DH where he can really, concentrate on that hitting, which he really is on a struggle right now. So, I like the move, and, you cannot go wrong with Adam Lind over at DH.
No, you can't, and I do expect that he will turn things around this year. I expect about 20 home runs at him. At the catcher's position, you get another guy who really has never been someone to hit for a great average, but he will give you some power, and that is J.P. Arancibia. Now, with Arancibia, there were a lot of questions about what his future would be. A lot of people believed that he would be part of the trade going back to the Marlins. Ultimately, they hold on to him, and they move on from some of their other prospects, including Travis Denard, who ends up going to the New York Mets in the Preview-Reyes+Dickey deal. So basically, that said that Arancibia is their guy for at least the next 3 or 4 seasons in all likelihood. And Arancibia is a guy that has hit 23 home runs in 2011, 18 last year, will give you a good amount of RBIs. The one issue with him is he's going to strike out, and the average, really, you're not going to get too much better than about a 230 clip. And that part's disappointing, no doubt about it. But I think that you just need to know going in that you're not going to get a great average and you're going to get some power from Arancibia.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of J.P. Arancibia. Tim, you know this, and everybody else does know this. I'm a huge J.P. Arancibia fan. Yes, the average is not where it's at, but you know what? This guy is going to get you a decent amount of home runs. Like Tim said, in 2003, in his first full season at the Major League level, this guy hit 23 home runs. And you know what? Looking down at his AAA and down at AA, with the AAA Las Vegas 66ers or 76ers or something. I don't know the whole
67ers, yeah.
The 67ers or something like that. This guy hit 32 home runs. This guy coming up to the Major League level, he has not really displayed what he saw down at the AAA level. But you know what? Going into this season, I really thought that he was going to be a part of the deal going to Miami because, you know what, that team really lacks a power hitter, and that's what they really needed in the move. But, they didn't get it, and I think J.P. Arancibia could be the guy that could have taken over Miami. But now he's sticking there, and the team is still sticking with J.P. Arancibia, and I like the move. He's going to get you a fair amount of home runs. Maybe this year he can reach up to 20. That's what we're hoping for him. But you know what? I would be really comfortable if he just concentrated more on that average and try to get his average up. Because you know what? Throughout his time with the Toronto Blue Jays, it just really wasn't there for me. So you know what? Arancibia, he really needs to focus in on his average.
Yeah, he does need to get that average up. And you mentioned the possibility of him going to Miami. I think that they have Giancarlo Stanton, and you're right, other than him, there really is not a ton of power on that team, so he would have been an option that could have made sense to bring in potentially, but they did not bring him in. Now, behind him, there's 2 options, one of which will end up being Preview-Reyes+Dickey's catcher. Remember, Preview-Reyes+Dickey throws that knuckleball, so John Gibbons has already said that he will have his own catcher this year. The 2 options are Henry Blanco, who is a longtime MLB veteran. He will provide not really much of the plate, but behind the plate he is a very good catcher. And then Josh Tolley is a guy who is more familiar with Preview-Reyes+Dickey because he's coming over from the Mets as well. So I think Josh Tolley, in all likelihood, he's a solid backup catcher, had done some starting work for the Mets last year. I think Josh Tolley is the best option to be this team's long-term backup. Now, over at first base, Edwin Encarnacion is going to be the starting first baseman. Encarnacion last year absolutely exploded. He's a guy that in the past, he had 26 home runs with the Reds in 08. He's always shown a ton of potential, but he really his peak of power has been at about 20 to 25 home runs, and then last year, for whatever reason, when guys go to Toronto, they seem to develop better power swings, and he did that last year in his third season with Toronto, a contract year, hit 280 with 42 home runs. 42. He actually hit more home runs last year than Jose Bautista. 110 RBIs and 13 stolen bases. That is a ton to get out of him. I think he's a pretty solid glove over at first base because he is a natural third baseman, and at age 30, he appears to have finally hit that stride. He's a late bloomer, but man, has he found it.
Absolutely, but you know what? I like Edwin Encarnacion. Don't get me wrong, but you know what? I think that's just going to be a one-hit wonder in his entire career. Actually, I mean, this is a guy on average could get you about 23 to 24 home runs a year. But you know what? Last year he just went off. But yes, Tim, he did hit more home runs than Jose Bautista. But you know what? Jose Bautista was actually injured most of a big part of last year. So that's a more understandable. So, Edwin Encarnacion really just picked up the pieces from where Jose Bautista was left off. And, even though they did finish in third place again, Edwin Encarnacion, going into this year, if this team is really going to be a really good contender, you also got to get more of that power. You got to get that power swing back in 2012 and bring it over to 2013. But overall, his great defensive ability is a plus. I think first base is where that guy really does live.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned that you're not sure that he's going to be able to reach that power again, and I agree. I think Jose Bautista is still the best power hitter on this team. I think we see Encarnacion this year hit about 30, 32 home runs, and that's fine. You add in some very nice pieces in this lineup, and all of a sudden there's way less pressure on him. Now, Mark DeRosa is going to be his backup. DeRosa has had a pretty solid MLB career since the late 90s, came up with the Atlanta Braves, spent some time with Texas, Chicago, San Francisco, tons of places, and the one issue in his career has always been staying healthy. Last year with the Nationals, hit 188 in 48 games, so it's tough. That was less than 100 at bats, so I don't know what to take out of it, because the bottom line is that we have not seen him really play a full season or get a ton of at bats in 3 or 4 years now. So we'll see what they get out of Mark DeRosa. I think his versatility has always been something that people like out of him. He was a natural second baseman, but he can play even a little outfield. He can play first, third, short, so that part of him is valuable. He's getting up there in age, but Mark DeRosa is someone I've watched his entire career, and he is a pretty solid player. So over at second base, Meister Sturz, who is coming over from the Angels, he will be the starter. In 100 games last year, hit 256, 2 home runs. I think the thing that they like here is that he's going to hit lower in the order, and Jose Reyes will lead off, and then Meister Sturz can almost act as that other leadoff man, that second leadoff guy, whether it's at the 6th position or whether it's at 8 or 9, that kind of resets the lineup and gets things going again, because he's a contact hitter who can get on base, and then also, once he's on base, has very good base stealing ability, stole 17 and 19 bases last year, and I expect coming over here, the expectations that they have on him are going to be that he's going to get on base and steal bases. So I expect to see him with 25 plus stolen bases this year.
Yeah, I mean, Meister Sturz, I follow this guy through LA from thick and thin. I grew up a Bay Area fan. You know what? My mom's an Angels fan. I did watch a little Angels baseball. And Meister Sturz is always, a great accomplishment to any team in Major League Baseball. Because you know what? Like Tim said, he is going to bat, a little bit lower in the lineup. You cannot go wrong with that. But what you get out of him is solid and perfect defense. This is a really very advanced type of second baseman, who has been, I wouldn't want to say a waste of talent, but you know what? Defensive-wise, this guy is perfect, Great defensibility. His average was, not where it was because he was a bench piece for the Angels. So coming over here, I do have a lot of expectations with him with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think that the Angels missed out on a perfect type of talent. I did not mean to say a waste of talent, but you know what? The Angels are missing out on one hellacious of a second baseman, and you guys should really look out for Meister Sturz in 2013.
Yeah, I think that that is a piece that they let go, and they made the decision to go in a different direction. We'll see what he does in Toronto. Now, Jose Reyes over at shortstop. Jose Reyes is a player, again, I've grown up a Phillies fan, so I've watched the NL East my entire life, and I've seen Jose Reyes his entire career because right when he was coming up was when my earlier days, not my earliest, but earlier days of watching MLB. So Jose Reyes coming up with the New York Mets. I've watched his entire career there, and then his one season in Miami last year. And what I can say is when he's healthy, this guy is one of the best base stealers I've ever seen. I put him up there with guys like Juan Pierre, and even Rajai Davis has the potential, another Toronto Blue Jay, to be that good. Get to that in a little bit. But Jose Reyes, what I want to see out of him this year is I want to see a guy who hits 300. He hit 337 in a contract year with the Mets in 2011. But other than that, he's a career 291 hitter. Hit 287 last year. I want to see him get that average up over 300 this year. See him steal 35, 40 bases, and set the table, because that's what he needs to do on this team. Be a catalyst for this team. Set things up for guys like Melky Cabrera, Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, J.P. Arencibia, Adam Lind. If he can do that, get on base, and know his role, then he's going to be the most valuable part to this team, I believe.
This was the holy piece to that trade. And you know what, Jose Reyes, I have a good feeling that he's going to stay a Toronto Blue Jay for a while. Because you know what, I have a good feeling that, this Blue Jays team with just Jose Reyes, and you're adding more depth to this team. It's an all-star caliber team, but Jose Reyes just really bumps that Blue Jays team up to top contender and the team to beat in the American League East. Because Jose Reyes, throughout his MLB career, he has batted phenomenal. And even when he's injured, this guy has faced adversity in 2009, having a down year, but he came back in 2010 and really set the score, saying, I'm still here, I still got the power. Going over to the Miami Marlins, I also had a good feeling that he was going to be there for a while, but you know what, that didn't work out. I hope it works out in Toronto. This guy is a great, talented player, can get you home runs from time to time, but you know what you're getting out of him is steal base power, or speed, stolen base speed, and it's phenomenal to have him on this Blue Jays team, because you know what, like I said, it just bumps this team up to the next level.
And I think that the one thing about Jose Reyes that people feel is that this is a guy who's never truly reached his full potential, and he won a batting title. It's not that, it's just that he's never really been a part of a very good team. He has a chance to do that this year and be on a true contender, so I think that we'll see how he reacts there. A lot of people felt like he was a negative culture in that Mets locker room, and I never got that impression. I always got the impression with him that he was a guy that was just clumped into a bad locker room with the Mets, and the 07-08 Mets that collapsed 2 years in a row. And I think that now that he's in a solid locker room, he's steady, he's on a good team, I think things will take care of themselves, and he just has to go out and play his game. Over at third base, Brett Lowry, who again, we don't know his status heading into the year. He has an oblique strain, and according to the Blue Jays website, he will avoid baseball activities for the immediate future, and there's no timeline for a rehab program, which leads you to believe it's all but set that he will not begin the season with the team, and who knows from there. Again, it's going to take some time to rehab, so you'd think he's going to be out at least probably the first month of the season, and we'll see from there. But this is a guy who 2 years ago came up, hit 9 home runs in 43 games, and a lot of people, myself included, felt like he was a huge candidate to have a breakout season. It didn't happen. This year, though, I think he is someone that will have a breakout year once he's able to play. Last year, 273, 11 home runs, 48 RBIs, stole 13 bases, and I think he can put up better numbers, and he's probably going to end up playing about the same amount of games because of the injury time, 125 games. So I look at him hitting about 285 with 15 to 20 home runs this year, and we'll see from there. I think he's someone into the future that can be a top 5 third baseman.
Absolutely. I mean, it just has to determine on when he's going to get back into baseball activities, because you know what, the World Baseball Classic is going on, and Brett Lawrie, I mean, throughout last season, you saw that guy making, dangerous third base plays, going into the stands. We saw that against the New York Yankees. And you know what? It was just a matter of time until he got injury. Now it's an oblique strain, and we do not know when he's going to get back into action. But you know what? Going into the future for Brett Lawrie, he has a bright career. This guy does have a good power bat. He has a good average. He can hit for average also. So that's also really good to have. But you get good defense out of him, and we just hope that this really is not that serious of an injury, and we hope that he can get back to baseball as soon as possible. But I wish Brett Lawrie the best.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Mark DeRosa will likely be the guy to start over at third base to begin the year. Again, Meister Sturz can be a guy over at third, but he's starting at second, so that option appears to be out the door for the time being. Looking out in left field, you have Melky Cabrera, who signs a 2-year, $16 million deal after the Giants basically let him go. He was suspended. He was actually eligible to come back for the NLCS, and the Giants basically just said, screw you, we're playing well, and we're not bringing the negative attention onto our team. So they didn't even bring him back for the playoffs or the World Series, which worked out pretty well for them. They ended up getting Hunter Pence anyway, so he effectively replaced Melky Cabrera, even though his production wasn't quite as good. Melky Cabrera has a lot to do in rehabbing his image, because not only did he get caught with steroids, and now he's been linked to numerous other things. The lab in Miami, he tried to cover the whole thing up. I mean, he was playing in some dirty business. He was not doing things the right way on the field, and he was involved with some sketchy stuff off the field. And the bottom line is that Melky Cabrera has a lot of rehabbing of his image to do. On the field, I don't know what to expect. This guy last year was hitting .346 in 113 games, just absolutely having an incredible season, won the All-Star Game MVP. He was an MVP candidate. That was the bottom line for Melky Cabrera. Was going to hit about 25 home runs, and then the suspension came out, and things were just never the same. He never played another game with the Giants. I like the move of the Blue Jays picking him up, but I don't know exactly what to expect.
Yeah, I have to agree, because, I saw, because I am a Giants fan, and I've watched Melky Cabrera throughout the entire 2012 season leading up to his suspension. Now, it really does suck that he took steroids. This guy was a phenomenal player for the San Francisco Giants, was well on his way to become an MVP caliber, but, when it hit that steroids, when he was linked to steroids and he took steroids and was suspended, the Giants went on and just, they were disappointed. Bruce Bochy didn't want him back on the team. And Melky Cabrera, doing some research before, I did this video on Cabrera. Melky Cabrera did not even say bye to Bruce Bochy. He did not say bye to any of the Giants teammates. And he left them up in thin air. Not even an apology to the fans. He just left San Francisco and comes to Toronto. It's good. It's a good landing spot for him to get back on track. But I hope that he can have a clean rest of his baseball career, because that once you're linked to steroids, it just really questions a lot of people when it comes to a certain MLB player. And for Melky Cabrera, for me on a personal note, it really hit me hard. But Melky Cabrera, I honestly cannot know what to expect of him. We could see, the Melky Cabrera that we saw in Atlanta, or we can see, the Melky Cabrera that we saw in his late days with the New York Yankees.
I don't know what to expect, because if you remember with the Yankees, Melky Cabrera was a bench player who was chubbier, certainly not the skinny in shape guy that he is now. He sucked with the Braves in his 1 year there, and then all of a sudden he went to Kansas City and he found it, and then he went to San Francisco in the Jonathan Sanchez trade and he found it even more, and it turns out we know why he found it. I'm just not sure if the steroids really were what just put him over the top, or if part of that had to do with just the fact that he became a better overall MLB player. I don't know what to say about Melky Cabrera. I think the thing that is good is that he's in a lineup that is a high-profile lineup. Features Jose Reyes, Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion, Brett Lowry. There isn't a ton of pressure on Melky Cabrera to do great because he has other good pieces around him, so that should allow him to relax. Now, his backup in left field is Rajai Davis, who was a starter last year. Davis stole nearly 50 bases last year, which he's done one other time in his career, stolen 40 bases 2 or 3 times, counting the 50 stolen base season. Hit .257 with 8 home runs and 43 RBIs. This is a very solid fourth outfielder because he gives you a good defensive replacement, and then he also gives you a pinch runner off of the bench, and a guy who is a pretty respectable hitter. Ricky Henderson once said that he thought he could steal, that Rajai Davis had the potential to steal 80 bases in a season, so this is a legitimate base stealer, one of the best in the game.
Absolutely. Rajai Davis, I've been following, this is another guy who I followed his career, because, he did have a season in San Francisco in 2008. I thought that could be, a long-term deal with him. But, this is a guy who has only hit, 4 home runs in his MLB career, and that's in, a total of, 8 or 9 seasons at the Major League level. And, he really has not been, that big of a power hitter. But, what you get out of him is phenomenal base-stealing abilities, and it's amazing by how every team decided to pass him up, because this guy is mainly going to be a bench roller. There's no doubt about it. But he will, once he's in the pinch run, this guy will wow you out of anywhere, because when you look at this guy, 46 stolen bases in Toronto than last year. You know, in 2011 you got 34, a big leap from 34 to 46. We're talking about another dozen stolen bases for him in 2012. And you know what? He's going to continue to progress at the role, more stolen bases. We just hope that you know, he gets more, you know, time to, you know, get more batting time, you know.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to steal quite as many bases this year because he's not going to be a starter, but we shall see. In center field, the guy who I always thought was going to be a star with the Cardinals, and things just kind of fell through between him and Tony La Russa, is Colby Rasmus. Last year in his first full season in Toronto, Rasmus hit .223 with 23 home runs, stole 4 bases, 75 RBIs. The production's really good. That's what they need on him, except they need the average to come up. That's the one thing with this team. They have Adam Lind, who hit below .230 last year. They have Aaron Sevilla, who did that. So they need his average to come up. And overall, this is a team that, adding Jose Reyes in, I think you look for a big batting average improvement. Now, his backup is coming over from the Miami Marlins as well, and that's Emilio Bonifacio, who last year stole 30 bases. He is another very nice bench piece. I think that the one issue is that he is very similar to Rajai Davis, so I'm not sure that this was the greatest move to bring in, but Emilio Bonifacio is a good piece to have on your bench. I just think that you have two very similar players. And then, Justin, we look over at the right field position, and that is where Jose Bautista is. Prior to last year, had hit 54 home runs in 2010, 43 and 11, so he pretty much proved that it wasn't a fluke. And then he also, I think he actually had a better year in 2011 because he hit .302 and struck out a few less times. Then last year, the injury bug really hit him. In 92 games, not only did the average dip to .241, the home runs were still there with 27 home runs, but injury-wise, he just could not stay on the field last year.
Yeah, it was a really, really disappointing season for Jose Bautista. This guy is a phenomenal talent, and, you know, coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates, a lot of people thought, you know, who is Jose Bautista? But, you know, he really made his presence felt with the team, and, you know, 40 home runs, and it's with multiple 40 home run seasons, I think over that also. He's just been phenomenal player. And you know what, Jose Bautista, you know, I don't have really a big concern for him during this year. He's going to get back into shape, you know, before he went out with injury. 27 home runs. This guy is a true power bat, a really underestimated player coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates in a trade, I think it was. And you know what, he is the leader of this team, and there's no doubt about it. Now, going over to center field, which I missed out, is Colby Rasmus. You know, Colby Rasmus has not really been signified for having a high average throughout his entire MLB career. I mean, this guy has never hit up to 300, where a lot of people thought he would be going, you know, with the Cardinals, you know what, but you do get a great, solid defense out of him. We've seen it multiple times, you know, a tremendous amount of times. So, you know, Colby Rasmus, you cannot go wrong with him in center field. He plays great defense. Stolen base-wise, he's not that dangerous on the base path, but you know, he does have good power for you, so that's also very good. Now, but Tim, there's also some rumors going out of Toronto right now that over in second base is actually a two-man, you know, battling it out right now, still going on in spring training, is for the starting second base job between Turris and Emilio Bonifacio.
Bonifacio, quite honestly, I think he's a better base stealer and a bit better of a hitter than Turris, so I could see him getting the job at second base, to be honest with you. I think both of them are good options. They're similar players. I just think Emilio Bonifacio is a little bit better.
Yeah, I can agree with this there, but you know what, you got to go with the guy who has the most experience, you know, in the infield, the guy who's played, you know, second base and played, you know, shortstop in his entire career. You know, I'm going to go with Turris, not taking anything away from Bonifacio, but you know what, I honestly think that, that, you know, Rajai Davis is not always going to be an everyday backup. You also got to, you know, share some room over on that bench. You know, Bonifacio, not taking anything away from him, he's a great hitter, dangerous on the base path, kind of like how Rajai Davis is. And, you know, this team is going to have a very fast and very speedy bench. They just really need another power hitter on that bench.
Yeah, I think that's the one hole on this team, is that they don't have any real pop off of the bench. If you look around this team, they have some good contact hitters off their bench, but they don't have anyone that brings a great amount of power off that, and that's something you would like to have. Now, looking over to this rotation, Preview-Reyes+Dickey will lead the team. 20-6 last year, 5 complete games, 3 of which were shutouts, 2.73 ERA, over 230 innings. He was the heart and soul, along with David Wright of the New York Mets. Unfortunately, it's a business, and he could not agree to a long-term deal with the Mets. They made the decision that I still will say they won the trade that was best for their future. They move on from R.A.Dickey. And the one thing about R.A.Dickey, though, coming over to Toronto is while he's 38, he's in the prime of his career because the knuckleball is just, it's completely different. While he throws a harder knuckleball than Tim Wakefield ever did, he is a guy that I believe could pitch at a pretty high level for the next 2 or 3 years. A lot of people have seen him pitch in spring training believe that he is going to continue on a high pace even though he's moving into such a tough hitting division. And I think R.A.Dickey right now is someone I would expect to have 15 to 17 wins and an ERA around 3 this year.
You know, I've been reading I've been reading and listening to a lot of, interviews with R.A.Dickey and reading a lot of stuff on him. I've been getting this vibe that, people are thinking that this guy, is he at the peak of his career? It really has passed. At the peak of his career, even though it wasn't really at the best that it was really when he was with Texas, and we all know how of a travesty that was with him. But going on to play with the Mets, he wasn't really that recognized until last season. And you know what? This year, this is a guy who's going to throw you that nasty knuckleball, and that's something that's amazing. Tim Wakefield's knuckleball was unhittable, kind of like how R.A.Dickey's is right now. I don't really see 16 to 17 wins out of him. I really see 15 to 14 wins this season. Coming from an ace, that is a real shocker to you. But you know what? I honestly think it's going to be a kind of a sort of down year in the win column for R.A.Dickey this year.
Well, I think what you meant by the peak of his career, I guess I defined it wrong with the peak, but the prime of his career is now because that's when he ultimately is doing the best. Now, at the number 2 spot, Brandon Morrow is going to get the look. Morrow had a 2.96 ERA last year. It was only in 124 innings. But again, he's a guy that has so much potential. He's always been a guy with Seattle and Toronto that you've seen the glimpses of it. But last year, in the limited time, it was only 21 starts. You expect a starter to at least make about 30, 33 starts, somewhere in that area. He really put it together, and I think that Brendan Morrow is a guy that I expect to have an ERA around about 3.20 this year in a full year. Now, Justin, I'm going to go through the remainder of the rotation, and then we'll get your thoughts on the rotation as a whole. Mark Buehrle is your number 3 guy. While I've always felt like Mark Buehrle was somewhat overrated, you know what you're going to get out of him, probably about a 3.60 ERA. He's going to give you over 200 innings, which he's done every year since 2001, which is, I believe, the longest streak currently in the MLB. He will give you an occasional complete game, and he's going to give you 13 to 15 wins. So he's a solid guy in the middle of that rotation. The X factor in this rotation, the X factors are the 2 guys at the back who both have ace-type stuff. We'll begin with Josh Johnson, who last year went 8-14 with a 3.81 ERA. But I'm looking back to 2010, 2009, 2011. Those were where he really looked like an ace. We'll begin in 2009 when he had a 3.23 ERA. 15 wins, pitched a full year. In 2010, missed 2 or 3 starts, but had a 2.30 ERA, finished top 5 in Cy Young voting. And then in 2011, he was cruising prior to an injury at a 1.64 ERA in 9 starts. And I think Josh Johnson is someone that if he can ever stay healthy and put it together, he could potentially win a Cy Young for the Toronto Blue Jays. And Ricky Romero, I don't know if I'd ever go as far as saying Cy Young. I never felt comfortable when he was considered their ace, but now within a matter of a year, he's gone from being the ace to being the number 5 starter. You want to see him get that 5.77 ERA down, but even if he doesn't pitch at the 2.92 ERA clip that he did in 2011, if he gives you a 3.73 ERA at the 5 spot like he did in 2010, you'll take that because it's your number 5 guy. He's going to give you over 200 innings, so top to bottom, this is a very, very good rotation.
Oh, absolutely. It's a sick rotation. R.A.Dickey, underneath him, you got Brandon Morrow, who I'm actually really surprised at the positioning of this rotation because you would really, you're bringing over Buehrle, you're bringing over Josh Johnson, and you would really think that you would have R.A.Dickey, Josh Johnson, then Buehrle, then Brandon Morrow. But Brandon Morrow has been a phenomenal player for this team at starting pitching, and you cannot go wrong with him. He's great to have on any team, and he fits in really well with the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a must-keep for this team at number 2. Going over to number 3, you got Mark Buehrle, a guy who, with Miami, he really disappointed me because, this is a guy who a lot of people have a lot of hype of coming over to the Miami Marlins, but, he really did not live up to, the height that he was going over there. But, he's coming over to a team in Toronto. He's going to have, the backup with the hitting and everything. So that's a good plus for him. Now, Josh Johnson, injuries, it's a big thing here. Last year in his first full season and since 2000, in a year, in 2012, he really did not bright us up a whole lot. He went 8-14 with a 3.81 ERA. We really hope that he can bring it down a little bit because, this guy, even though he's still kind of young, don't get me wrong here, this guy is reaching to a point where, he really needs to get back to that form is what I'm really trying to say. This guy still has, a lot of Cy Young caliber form, but if he's really going to be this low down in the rotation for the Toronto Blue Jays, it's really, really questioning me right now. So, but Josh Johnson overall is a great player. Ricky Romero, we just hope that he brings that ERA down. This is a guy who pitched 225 innings in 2011. 2012 was just not a good year for Ricky Romero. A total different look to Ricky Romero, with 181 innings in 2012. He needs to get more innings. He needs to go longer in games. But you know what? Mostly every start that he had was with last year. It was just really disappointing overall for him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We will see what happens with that rotation, but on paper it looks very good. The two guys we're going to look at their bullpen, and then I'm going to preview the guys in their bullpen, and then Justin and I will give our record predictions for the Blue Jays. Sergio Santos will be the setup man. Santos only pitched 6 games last year before an injury, but prior to that he was penciled in as the closer, did a pretty respectable job for the White Sox, saving 30 of 36 in 2011. Casey Janssen will be the closer for this team. Janssen last year saved 22 of 25. So, Justin, you put a good bullpen that also features the veteran Darren Oliver, features Brad Lincoln, Brett Cecil. It's a solid bullpen. You add that on, and then it's a very good lineup, a very good rotation. This team is for real. I do believe that they will win the AL East this year, and I'm not someone who ever goes with hype, but the Yankees are injured. The Orioles, I don't want to say are a fluke, but they had a lot of things go their way last year. They won a lot of extra inning games, and I just don't see that happening again this year. The Rays, I think, are the second best team in this division right now, which is a team that could certainly compete with the Blue Jays, but I'm not sure that they're going to win this division. And then the Red Sox, I'm just not really sure, and I think they're a 500 team. So the Blue Jays, I see about 94, 95 wins will win this division because as good as it is, it's so competitive, so I don't think any one team's going to win 97 or 98 games, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've read messages, I've read a whole lot of this, are the Blue Jays going to win above 90 games, possibly into the 100 ranges. I honestly think that's not going to happen. The Yankees, even though they are injured, they still play, competitive baseball. And, big ups to the team. They got CeCe Sabathia, Granderson, and yada, yada, yada on there. Going to the Baltimore Orioles, they have good players, but I don't know if they're really going to be, that team who compete, throughout the entire year. We all know the situation with Tampa and Boston is just down there to eat at the bottom for a little while. But, overall, this team is phenomenal. I really like their bullpen. Sergio Santos coming back. Casey Janssen, you can't go wrong with, as your closer, with your closer. And then you got Darren Oliver, who's not really going to make an impact. He was actually searching for a trade, hoping to get more time in the bullpen, because when you look at this bullpen, it really is, stacked up with a couple of prospects. You got my boy Brett Cecil in there, Brad Lincoln. And there's one guy I really like to throw in there, and that's Jeremy Jeffries, who's been a top prospect with the Kansas City Royals. He went to the Brewers. He actually was with the Brewers at first, and he went over to the Royals. It didn't work out, and then now he's with the Blue Jays because you know what? This guy is only one more failed test of of a banned substance. I know it wasn't steroids, but it is the marijuana. And if he does get tested one more time for a positive illegal substance use, he's going to be out of baseball for the rest of his career.
So we'll see what happens with the Toronto Blue Jays. This is an interesting team. They put together a great offseason. We'll see what happens. I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Gozzi. Until next time, we'll see you later.